Hello and welcome to everybody. Um, this is an interview with Sarie, who has she's created a manual for children as an introduction to the three principles. And the thing I love about Sarie is all of the complication, all of the over explanations being taken out, and she's created this manual that is just simple to follow, easy to go along with, and pretty much has something for everybody in it, child and adult. So would you like to tell us a little bit more about this manual, please?
Thank you for the lovely introduction. It's the Healthy Minds Manual, and this started, I've been trained as a psychotherapist and worked in private practice for many years. I suffered with really severe anxiety in my early 20s, where I ended up being hospitalised for a month. Went from actually being a really confident, what appeared to be a really confident person, the last person any of my friends would expect to be the anxious one, and within the space of about 2 weeks I wouldn't leave the house. So that was a big kind of shock and a big sort of, oh, what's happened and how do I stop this happening again in my life? And then went on my journey of probably, well, I'm 40 now, so nearly 20 years of trying to fix myself, including training as a therapist. I do hypnotherapy, NLP, you name it, I've done it for myself and trained in it. So it was a very long journey. And then I came across the three principles, originally through Nicola Bird, and then started to listen to some of Michael Neill's stuff, and they've kind of been my two constant go-tos still now. And I started to realise that although I'd spent my whole life working in mental health, that like a lot of places, I was massively overcomplicating it. And in a sense, even as a psychotherapist, I feel now that I was trained to also overcomplicate it. Now, I get that we need to be thorough and we're dealing with vulnerable people. Well, we're all vulnerable anyway. But I just realised it was massively overcomplicating things. And I'd experienced that in myself and then with other people. So when I came across these three principles and started to see a huge change in my own life, that doesn't mean that I don't ever get anxious. It doesn't mean that I don't have ups and downs and all of that. But I'd say the key difference in my life now is that I don't live in fear of being anxious. So I might not have even been that anxious for a whole year, say, or a year and a half, but it was always there thinking, what if it comes back? What if it gets worse? And so I was living in fear of it, really. And I don't anymore. If I wake up and I'm anxious in the morning, I'm like, oh, well, it'll pass. So what? And saying that now with people that are in the throes of feeling like that, I get it can even be a frustrating thing to hear, because I get that it very much can feel like we can't get out of that. I'm too deep in it. It's just how I am. All the questions I get asked about, is it chemical imbalance? Is it this? Is it that? And actually I realise that once we start to simplify and don't fear our own kind of feelings, then it just settles, which is what happened for me.
When we can see that every emotion that we have, every feeling that we have is completely normal, that no matter how much we hold on to that or try and hold on to it, it goes of itself anyway.
Yeah, that we naturally reset. And I think, and so people will say to me, but how did you do it? I get what you're saying. So the stuff that I teach, I'm showing them in here and on my videos and things like that. And they'll say, yeah, but I get what you're saying, but how do you get to that point where you're not scared? And that's the bit that, particularly in the beginning, is quite difficult to answer, because you used to think it's just like magic. You just got to learn about how thought works, start to trust in your innate well-being through that, and it just starts to trickle to the point where the best way I sometimes explain it is, I can be stressed and I can be overthinking, but there's a level of calm at the same time where I'm like, I can see I'm stressing out. I know this is making me feel all sorts of physical sensations, but I know I'm okay. And it's that level of knowing alongside that you're okay is the liberating bit.
So you can be like a tree that's going to bend in the wind.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's so solid underneath.
Yeah, and so the bending in the wind becomes kind of almost like, for me, it's a bit like just a little bit of a roller coaster that I'm on, but I'm not as scared of it. And one of the examples that I use in here, and that's what I was going to say. This isn't really like it's not a structured way of this is what you need to do and you will have insights and you will feel less anxious. This is me describing some of my insights, giving kind of really basic examples. And then there's little bits at the end of each section called the reflection parts, where it's just to sort of reflect and be interested in your own life and how you see things, because I believe that hearing about other people's insights can sometimes trigger your own. That's how I learn. It's just through hearing other people's stories, other people's insights, and then I started to have some of my own. So it's just little things like explain a bit about thoughts, how that all works, trusting your own innate well-being, and then things like these little, I'm so chuffed with this that as a teenager drew these pictures for me, and he's only 14 just, and he's just done a fantastic job of the pictures. But it's just explaining really in here what it is to be human, so that we know what to expect and not be so scared of it. So being comfortable with the discomfort, that was one of the biggest learnings for me, and still is really, because when that discomfort can take us by surprise, or so it seems at the time, it is easy to kind of go, oh no, it's here, what's happening, why do I feel like this? But the more we understand how all that works, the sooner it passes, and it's much less intense every time. So it's just things like that really.
It can be quite difficult when you've got a sudden intense emotion that doesn't feel as though it could possibly be normal. Yeah. There must be something wrong with me to be able to feel this. Absolutely. It can't be normal. And our brain just tricks us at little times. Yeah. And as you say, using the examples in your book and judging for themselves, looking and exploring for themselves.
Absolutely. And the reason I say it's for families, and people say to me, well, what age group is it for and who's it actually for? And I say it's for anyone. And the reason I say that is because adults can read this and understand much more about thought. Again, it's not about, it doesn't need to be complicated. So the fact that it's simple, I will often say to sometimes parents that I'm working with, watch my teen program. I understood that easier than the other stuff. You know, the simpler, the better for me. But the idea is that this is like a guidance, and then you can create your own examples to help explain to your own children. Because again, I've done it where I've done set programs for set ages, but one 10-year-old versus another 10-year-old can be so vastly different. So I wanted to do it as a guide for you to then communicate with your children, for example, in the way that you know they'll be able to hear what you're saying. And there's a bit at the back that I put in here, which is about how do you support other people when they're anxious? And I put that in because I get asked by so many parents, and it's a cycle, because what I've realised since I've learned all of this stuff is that when my daughter is stressed, I don't go into a complete panic, and I don't assume what she's feeling. I don't think that I know everything that's going on for her, which I used to. Even as a psychotherapist, I think, oh, she's feeling this and she's anxious and I need to stop it for her and I need to make it better. But the more I trust in now in my own innate well-being, it makes it very easy for me to see that she has hers as well. And I think that's the key for parents often is, you know, knowing how to support their children, but actually the best way to support your children is to understand this stuff with them.
And when parents can see that their own children aren't broken, they don't need fixed, they're not actually validating their children's transient experience as something's wrong, as real, as something that has to be fixed. Yeah. When you've got your own understanding and you know that your children are fine. Yeah. They may be upset, they may be anxious, they may be worried, they may be stressed, but that's just part of being human. Yeah. And it doesn't need anything. Yeah. Our calmness, our understanding automatically translates to our children.
Absolutely.
And so this book to me seems a little bit like a torch that any age can hold, be a very, very small, young or an adult, and it's going to shine the light in the area towards mental health and understanding.
Absolutely. There's throughout the manual, there's a little logo throughout that you can see there, and where there's that logo, I've done a video that goes with it just for a bit further explanation, a few more examples, And I also have a support group on Facebook for anyone with the manual, so that they can say, right, Sarie, I've read this, I kind of get it, but I'm struggling with my 6-year-old. How do I explain thought to my 6-year-old? And then I'll go in the group and I'll give them some ideas of where to start with it.
Brilliant. So how can, if you were to explain this manual in just a few sentences of what's in the manual that can help people, and where they can buy the manual from.
Yeah.
That'll be
So in the most simplest form, to me, what this is how to understand more about human nature, because as a result of that, we start to get a much quieter mind, and everything just seems so much easier in that sense. So I'd say this is kind of, for me, the beginning of just starting to see human nature for what it is, and in a very simplistic form. And if they wanted to get it, they can access it on my website, which is www.sarietaylor.com/My Healthy Mind Manual. Or just contact me through any of my social media. It's Coaching Healthy Minds with Sarie Taylor, and I can point them in the right direction. I did have initially quite a few orders from the USA and Australia, but the postage was extortionate from the UK. So I've had to look at other ways. So I'm currently in the process of, well, I've already got it actually, I just need to put a link up for people to be able to order a digital version if they don't want to have it posted all the way across the other side of the world.
So anywhere in the world, they can have a digital version, which has how many videos are there?
There's 5 standard videos, and then the idea again with that is that they will progress over time. So if I find I get asked the same question a lot, then I'll just add it. They've all got their own little training portal where I'll just keep adding things to it.
So there is an in-hand book, there is a online version, there are videos, there's a Facebook support group, there's an online portal, and they can access you directly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of support going on, and there's lots of room for growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Super. I'm looking forward to receiving my copy.
Good stuff. Thank you very much.
You are most welcome.
Right.
If anybody would like to get in touch with Sarie, then her address is, I will put her address in the link underneath all of these videos, and please feel free to let us know just how you think this manual goes, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be hugely beneficial, not just for anxiety, but for adults and children who just want to know a little bit more about where their experience in life comes from and how we all work as humans.